Hello, everyone. Welcome, and you're watching Afghanistan by Afghans, where I introduce you to some great personalities, artists, cultural keepers, and just everyday Afghans whom you may run into in your life, and you may wonder who they are and what their stories are. So we bring you the stories here on this show and on this oral history project. Today, I'm very excited because we have yet another amazing guest, Shuhib Zuhurooddin. His name, the last name may look complicated, but it's not that hard to say. And he goes by artist name Indigo, and he's a creative director. I ask all my guests how they like to be described because with people like Shuhib John, they do so many different things and do it so well. And Shuhib John has done some great music videos, other art projects. So he's, and in some of his description, I read multi-dimensional artist even. So I'm going to ask him about that as well. So without further ado, Shuhib John, and welcome to the show, man.
Hi, Mr. Thank you for having me. I feel privileged to be part of this project, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and congratulate for this platform, which actually put up front Afghans who actually either grew in the West but still have their heart in Kabul or Bamyan or Kandahar. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And you mentioned your birth city because you might be the first one I'm interviewing from Bamyan. So we're going to dig into the city a little bit. And I know you were born there. So tell us a little bit about Bamyan. I'm sure everybody has seen in the news the biggest Buddhas in the world, which were in Bamyan, and the remains of which continue to be in Bamyan. But tell us a little bit more about Bamyan. I know you were 3 when you were left, right? But
yeah, I was 3 years old. Actually, when I was 3, we left Bamyan to go to Kabul, and but Bamyan is where I'm born. And my background is from the Hazara tribe, and our ancestors, from what we've known from histories, is that they're either from Mongols or people from Mongolia. And Bamyan is also called the City of Light, and it was like a cultural, intellectual center in the past as well, and the cultural contribution that they've made into, let's say, spirituality and science and astrology. So it's a little bit the background of also the people who comes from there that still has that ethos in them. And I remember my mom and dad would always tell me, it's important for you to remember who you are if you want to know where you want to go. And I left Kabul when I was 4.5 or 5, when first during the Cold War, when the Mujahideen came to Kabul to actually protect. There was a whole war going on with the communists and the Mujahideens protecting Afghanistan at that time. That was the narrative, and we left to go to live in Pakistan, in Rawalpindi. So we're a family of 6 kids. My older brother, my little sisters, my little brothers. We left during the war to go live in Pakistan in order to survive the atrocity that some of my family members lived. So, yeah.
Were you guys, before you move on from Pakistan to the West, were you, any of your family members persecuted because of being from the Hazara tribe and ethnic group?
Yes, so my grandfather was Mir, which is the mayor of the city of Bamyan, and Shibar, which is specifically the city where I'm from. And when Hafiz al-Amin was in power, he actually wanted to make sure to persecute every leader within some specific region. And as we know the history of Afghanistan, there's a lot of intergenerational trauma that comes with tribes, where there's a lot of grudges in terms of which tribe did what to what tribe, and there's vengeances, and it with that comes also the context of the country, where there's instability, political or social. So my grandfather was actually lost my grandfather during a Philosophine reign. I was not born yet, but my father lost his father, and my uncles and my aunts. So
Specifically having to do with ethnic cleansing activities, or
exactly.
Okay. And then, continuing your story from Pakistan, you guys decided to move out and go to Canada. When did that happen, and how was that journey?
Right before coming to Canada, we actually moved to Moscow, Russia.
Oh, yes.
I also lived in Moscow, Russia for a few years. And after that, when I was 9 years old, I arrived in Montreal, Canada. So a lot of Afghan refugees who lived actually in Rawalpindi, Pakistan, if they didn't have any support, help from family outside Pakistan, because it was extremely difficult to either find a job in Pakistan or actually find work or even study, because there were also, again, racism and favoritism happening within the Pakistani political system, and it was difficult for the Afghan community to actually live well, or at least have the base to live there. So we had to actually leave Pakistan because it was difficult for us to survive there, and then through contacts we got to leave Pakistan and go live in Moscow, Russia for a little bit.
Yeah. And then you said 4 years in Moscow before moving to Canada?
Approximately 3 to 4 years we lived in Moscow, Russia, and then there was an NGO called Aga Khan Foundation Focus, who actually was taking refugees from minorities and helping them to bring them in the West. And we registered through the foundation, and then there was interviews going on, medicals going on, and then we got accepted to actually be brought to Montreal, Canada, and they had a contract with the government of Canada to bring especially Hazara minorities who their life could be in danger if they go back to Afghanistan.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You pointed out to so many interesting things in the first few minutes of your talk. You talked about kind of intergenerational trauma and multi-generational revenge stories and revenge schemes, that go back and forth and keeps like the whole Afghan population in a way divided and against one another. I'm wondering if the traumas that are, I kind of want to focus on the traumas because you were, for example, your grandfather was killed before you were even born. How is that transferred, the trauma from your parents to you now living in Canada, as a Hazara man? What traumas do you carry with you now? What have you healed through? How do you deal with that overall?
So what is funny is that as we grow, we don't know that we have those intergenerational traumas or grudges. We get to learn to understand what's really happening, because when we're young, we don't necessarily completely get involved into politics. But as we grow, we understand where the grudges come from. At the same time, we want to be cycle breakers of some thoughts and ideas that we can inherit from our parents. So let's say whatever our parents teach us doesn't mean necessarily that it's a good thing. They also repeat what their parents told them. So it's really to back off and look at things objectively to, okay, what's happening? Other than these like tribe factors, how can we break cycles and try to unite again and make sure that, because all lives matter. if we think about it. Like, I don't want any other tribe to suffer as much as the Hazara did. I'm not in favor just, okay, this is what happened to us. Yes, it happened. How can we learn from it? How can we make sure that it doesn't happen again? And how can we make sure that people in position of power make sure that there's not a systematic attacks specifically on minorities, and not just cultural tribe, but also religious tribe, coming from either a Shia branch or a Sufi branch or the Sikh branch, that Sikh religious minority that we have in Afghanistan. And it's really that it's a bigger picture of what's happening, and it's how can we contribute to make sure that those who are in position of power within our institution can make sure that it doesn't happen to the next generation.
So, yeah. And it seems like you personally, through your art, are trying to address some of them, or try to explore some of these. Kind of tell me a little bit about your art, and have you, what have you been able to kind of bring forth in terms of healing or learning, or mending these things from your side of things.
So art is a medium where we can actually cure from the trauma that we go through, and instead of actually taking that grudge and then repeating it to the next generation, how can we break the cycle and then use art as a medium to express it? And I mostly grew up in the West. I grew up in Montreal. So what happened is that my identity as a person, as an Afghan, but also as a Canadian, because I mostly grew up in the West, so I have a hybrid identity where there are values that I accept from my Afghan Muslim values, and there are values that I have from my Canadian, or let's say American side of my identity, which I find as amazing, if not more, as the one that I got to learn through my faith or through my cultural identity. So it's really to merge both of them and really take the best from both worlds, and then be a new point of reference for those who are coming after us, to be like, okay, like, yes, we're Afghan, yes, we're also Canadian, and we're also part of the human race, and how can we, build up on that and think about the future. So my art, so the video that I shooted with my little brother, who's a rapper, it was really to merge both cultures. So hip hop is a American culture expression and music, and how can we actually, we're like, okay, we love hip hop and rap music, but how can we actually rap about good values and what we went through? And my brother Fida, on his first song, which is called Sama, actually talks about the generational trauma that he went through in his family. And at the same time, how in the second song he talks about how can we balance both and make sure that we actually grow with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How many years younger is he from you?
He's approximately 8 years younger than me. So he's 25. I'm 23.
Okay.
And he's extremely talented, and we decided to team up and especially just to really express how we feel, because we didn't have any points of reference. So we realized that we will be the points of reference for the one coming ahead, of those younger than us that are already there, and really express that you can be Afghan, Muslim, and Canadian at the same time and be in peace with yourself.
Yeah, be whole. Yeah. And I love that you pointed out to the beauty of all cultural identities that you have, the beauty of being an Afghan, the beauty of being a Canadian, and kind of, I love those points. And I know with these two music videos, you've kind of also, when I was looking at the music videos, there's also like a nice artistic, cultural, aesthetic language you are using, with the edits, like specifically you're like using, specific types of edits. It wasn't the full frame, it's parts of certain frames, you're reflecting images and all of that. And the question I want to get to is, how much of that do you think, influenced from your heritage, from Afghanistan, from Bamyan? Because earlier you mentioned that Bamyan was and continues to be a very cultural center of that region, and rightly so, a religious center, cultural center, for Buddhists, Hindus, and even Islam. So I want to know how much have you referenced Bamyan and those music videos?
So I would say we were born in Bamyan, so our family's value system. So we were born Muslim, but I mean the ethos, the way our parents taught us how knowledge is important. The real richness is the knowledge that you gain inside your soul. So it's really the balance of deen and dunya. It's really to make sure that, okay, we are passing by here, but we are here to nourish our soul. So the music videos, also, I wanted to make sure to show our points of references. So, in the 12th century, you had Rumi, you had Nasir-e Khusraw, you had Maimonid, you had Thomas d'Aquinas, all those great philosophers, writers, astrophysicists, who were the people that people would look up to. And today, I'm like, who are the Rumis of today? And like, we do have people who can be that, and we have our our own points of reference to look up to. So I brought those imagery of coming from the world of khayal and imagination for people to have them as reference and then mimic them to bring them in the digital world and be like, okay, these are our heroes that we look up to. And those images come from Islamic books, coming from our culture, from Hafiz and Rumi's and Shams Tabriz books, stories, and poems.
Okay. So it looks like you used a lot of literally references, cultural references. I was going to say one of the square-shaped frame that you had is represented in your jacket right now. If you see your cool jacket, it's right there. So it's also, I would say, in attire and clothing as well.
Yes, geometry is important that we inherited from our Islamic culture, and geometry also represent the reflection and the perfection of Allah's creation. So it's really to break the traditional framework of how music videos are done in that way and adapt it to the way the kids are wired today with social media and the images changing every 7 seconds, because the concentration of kids in terms of pedagogy, it goes faster but with more content within less time. So it was really to change the images every 7 seconds, change the framing so we can keep the attention of the audience to get as much content as possible as they hear the music, the melodies, the words. So it was a teamwork. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, and I saw that you even translated it in Farsi on the top and in French at the bottom, and then YouTube even gave me a English translation too on top of that. So
yes.
Yeah, so you try to make it as accessible as you can.
Exactly.
Right. So besides these music videos, I'm curious to know what were some of the other creative projects that you have been involved with. And then we're going to get into your education and coaching as well a little bit.
Sure. So there's 2 projects that we're currently working on. One is a clothing line the brand is Zahir and Batin, and those two words come from the Holy Quran, which means the esoteric and the exoteric, or inside out, or body and soul. And we're currently working on the collection that will be soon on our shop section on our website. And last year I got the chance to meet Ariana Saeed for a music video project that will reflect the values that we have as Islamic people towards women. So I got a chance to meet her in New York, and we discussed the project. So I'm currently looking for sponsors to shoot the music video. The idea is there, and we're working on that. So to come alive, inshallah.
Okay. Nice.
And another music video coming for my brother Fida, which is another rap music video that will reflect again our values, but through rap music video as a medium.
Interesting. Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, the two that were out were really nice, so I'm sure the third one would be as well. It reminded me of this French artist. I can't think of his name right away, but Tunisian, lives in French, like the biggest French artist. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I know Tunisiano, who's a Tunisian.
No, I'm thinking Stromae.
Yeah, he's from Switzerland and Rwanda originally, but yeah, he's good.
Okay, yeah, not Tunisian. Okay, great. Rwandan, and yeah. It reminded me of him, because after watching one of you guys' video, they suggested me one of his videos. I'm like, oh, great.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of French rap is it just sounds so beautiful. I loved it. And is the third one in French as well?
The third one is in French as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. My brother also he plays dambura and sings in Azaragi as well.
Oh wow! Okay, so you got to incorporate some of that as well into it.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have some dervishes too.
Yeah. I want to also touch upon your a little bit of your coaching and educating side of things, and your interest in that, and also some of the activities. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
So I didn't got the chance to go to school up to 9 years old. So when I arrived in Canada, here by law, you have to go to school when you're under 16. So I started doing my studies in French, primary, secondary, college. And then I didn't know what to do in life, like in what field to go to study. So I went to study philosophy classes because I was really in love with, Persian poetry that my mom and my dad would tell me about, and it was deep, and it was profound, there was meaning to it. And so I was like, you know what, I'll go with my passion, and I'd like to know more about philosophies from East, West, and also the Middle Age, especially like Ibn Sina, which is Avicenna in the West, who was actually Persian from Afghanistan too, from Balkh. And so I studied philosophy as my major, and then I was also volunteering at different community center where the organization that I was working for, they were welcoming newly arrived refugees coming from different backgrounds, and we were helping them. So actually, we would teach them talim and tarbiyah and the history of who we are as Muslims and what is our history. So I was teaching Islam to the youths, to primary kids, and then after that I started coaching volunteers and teachers within the pedagogy field, and coaching for TEDx, which is a platform where people speak up about different subjects. TEDx, different city, and and I've been passionate about actually pedagogy and learning and teaching and learning more and more about creation of Allah. And so that's
okay. Because that you had mentioned that was kind of something you're interested in. Do you see yourself creating any sort of educational institutions or any initiatives or anything down the line to help? Because your work was mostly with refugees or newcomers, right?
So, inshallah, with the grace of God, if everything goes well in the longer run, I'm planning to open Zahir and Batin academies, which will be school for hybrid beings who will be able to actually find the balanced identity between who they are as from one culture background and also the fact that they were born in the West. So, inshallah, if everything goes well, ideally we would love to actually open something in Afghanistan. But then again, with the current situation of what happened recently, it is difficult to be hopeful, but it's not closed, We never know what can happen in 5 years and in 10 years. A lot of the Afghan youth who actually live in the West, in their heart, they're still from Afghanistan. They still want to go back there, build up, be together. And I think the fact that we actually got outside of the country, we're able to connect and then be cycle breakers for next generations. We understand that, our parents went through a lot. There was many factors. The fact that there are some cycles that they repeat, it's understandable. We don't necessarily agree with it, but we can understand it. And then what can we do from now on? And then I think many of us Afghans, as yourself, we can sit on the same table together, either though we're from different tribe, different school of thoughts and beliefs, and okay, how can we hands in hands make our country back to what it has always been,
Yeah, exactly. An inclusive space. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful and hopeful. And to kind of conclude and kind of take us at this time, as we're having this conversation just a few days ago, the blast happened in Kabul where it killed a number of, Hazara students. And this is just one in a series of events that has been happening, targeting, minorities in Afghanistan by whoever it may be. I guess as someone from that community or connected to that community, what are your feelings? Where do you kind of stand in terms of what it makes you feel when you see those sort of images or hear this continuous sort of persecutions over and over and over from multi-generational? What do you feel about it, first of all? And secondly, what is your reflection? Because it seems like you do a lot of reflection about future and healing and what we could be doing. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to lie to say that it doesn't hurt me. It does hurt me because, there's this poem I think it was from Hafiz, that it says that human beings were all from the same body. When one part hurts, one human is hurt, everyone should feel the pain. And my dad used to tell me, we Afghans, we're good with others, but we're not good with each other, unfortunately. And that's something that we have to learn to get out of it. And part of me is hurt, and I have a grudge to actually put myself into my Hazara tribe and be like, okay, it's us against them. But we have to grow out of that and look at the bigger picture of what's happening and be like, okay, how can we make sure that patterns doesn't repeat itself the next generation? Where can hope take roads? How can we sit together, be on the same table, be like, okay, let's respect each other tribe, respect each other differences. One of our strength as Afghan people is our differences. It's not a weakness. It's a strength. The fact that we're from so many different culture, we have different vibration, different way of understanding things. And if we can sit on the same table and be like, okay, the Tajiks, you guys are amazing in that field. Let's take care of that field. Hazara, you guys are good at that things. How can we work together? The Pashtuns, you guys are good at that thing. Let's work together. You take care of that field, and let's have a common goal to make make Afghanistan great as it always has been. And it's sad to know that there are still, and I'm sure there's so many other factors that pushes those terrible things happening to one specific tribe. But I would be as sad if it would happen to my Tajik brother or to my Pashtun brother. So it's really to not have a feeling of vengeance, but more of an understanding. And okay, how can we think in long term to make sure that we don't have those thoughts? First, like myself, I don't want to have that grudge. And and hopefully people in position of power internationally actually make sure that they do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it's a genocide. We kill ourselves. Each tribe has their own contribution, cultural, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and to do like a small genocide of one specific tribe is actually killing part of our own Afghan heritage.
Yeah. Very well put. Very well put. I mean, I love your perspective about unity. It seems like it's everything you're talking about is kind of pushing us towards unity, towards coming together and looking at our differences as strengths. That is just a beautiful takeaway for me personally. And that's just so beautiful. I wanted to give you a chance to share anything about any upcoming projects which you may have not mentioned, and also where people can find you. We'll put links to your social media and such, but anything that you haven't shared with us yet that you would like to say in conclusion, go for it.
So I don't have anything specific to share additionally. But I think one of my message would be to my Afghan brothers and sisters, or even the rest of the world who are watching this video, to not be selective about which lives matter. Not be selective, only be touched by when it comes to your tribe, or really have that, Allah gave us all that soul, that light in our heart, and it's to care about each one of us. And either, like, if you have that patriotic Afghan feeling, you should feel empathetic about each one of us. So yeah, that would be my last word closing.
Wonderful words and wonderful closing. Thank you so much, Abjan. I really appreciate you giving us this time to have this conversation. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure audiences did as well. There's more such conversations in this series, so please go ahead and check those out, and also check out Shuaib Jan's website for more of his work. And once again, thank you very much, Shuaib Jan.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you.